Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, good Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. A lot of big stuff yesterday. You got these peace talks well underway and advancing nicely, I'd say, if you look at how long these things usually take. This is moving along quite now that it has started moving along. But this was noted by numerous European leaders yesterday, thanking Trump, crediting him with being responsible for this. The leader of Italy noting that something changed, and it was clear, alluding not so subtly to the president of the United States. One of the other European leaders noted that we've done more in 2 weeks under Trump than the previous 3 years in terms of advancing peace. It's really amazing watching on full display these European leaders that we were told were privately pulling Joe Biden aside, telling him, you have to win this re-election. Kamala Harris telling us that all of these European leaders were talking about what a joke that Trump is and how frightened they are for the world if Donald Trump gets elected president. They sure don't seem that way, do they? They're making it very, very clear that the only reason that there is a chance for this killing to stop, for this needless war to stop, is because of one person, and that's Donald Trump. And there were also references to the strength in the alliance between NATO and the United States under President Donald Trump. It's really interesting. Much of the messaging that we are hearing from these European leaders, it's almost as if they are sending a message to the United States. Hey, we never were really all about that Biden guy. Just almost for their own credibility because of what has been exposed since, what many of us, of course, had recognized early on in his presidency, and even when he was running for the presidency, that he wasn't all there, continued to get worse. And all of the claims that were made by Democrats and by Biden and Harris regarding these world leaders and how fearful they were that Trump was going to break up NATO and that we would have World War III because Trump is a psychopathic dictator that wants to start wars. And you almost get the sense that some of these European leaders want to make sure the world knows, hey, that wasn't us. We were not on that. Nope. Thank you, President Trump, for bringing a more strengthened NATO to the table to do in just a couple of weeks what no one seemed to be capable of doing for 3 years. So we'll have some of the audio from yesterday. The mood was very noticeably different than the last time Zelensky visited the White House, which I think it's fair to say when you read between the lines that there were a number of Democrats, specifically a couple of U.S. senators, that essentially sabotaged the effort by convincing Zelensky to go in there and do what he did, to push back on Trump, to make some demands, and they sabotaged it. Now, I don't know. Had that not happened, would we perhaps already have an end to this thing? Would it have occurred? But just the possibility of the thousands upon thousands of people that are killed weekly, and just the possibility that perhaps was extended because Democrats' pettiness and their anti-Trump irrationalities compelled them to tell Zelensky, when you get in there, you really stick it to Trump because the world's going to be watching, and that's the way that you're going to get him. That's how you're going to get what you want. And, of course, we saw how it all played out. And for what? How long was potential peace put off because of that sabotage by a handful of Democrats? Lives. Men, women, children. And the common theme coming out of yesterday, which is an echo of Donald Trump, the killing just has to stop. Trump has made a point about not caring for a ceasefire, but instead an end to the war. And I think for a lot of people, there is understandably a failure to recognize, well, what's the difference? And I believe that Trump's perspective on this, which I understand, and I tend to agree with, is a ceasefire is stopping the killing, quote, stopping the killing, so you can talk about stopping the killing. It's an unnecessary step. Donald Trump is someone that does not like to waste time. Donald Trump is somebody that doesn't care for redundancy. Donald Trump is someone that why do tomorrow what you can do today? And the calls for a ceasefire so that everyone can get together and talk about an official forever ceasefire is something that Trump sees as it's an extra step that just pushes off the actual end to this. Now, the counter argument to that is, well, but we can that can happen faster. Like if you can get the ceasefire, then at least the killing stops, which ceasefires oftentimes that is not the case. I mean, we have seen this numerous times with other countries. You know, there's a ceasefire. Well, within 12 hours, each side is pointing to the other side saying they violated the ceasefire. And all that, ceasefire's done so that everybody can come together and start talking about lasting peace, some sort of official peace deal. And Trump recognizes that that's how it plays out. I think there's also an argument to be made that it makes it more difficult to actually get a peace deal because if there is a ceasefire in place, that tends to make the people involved feel like, well, we can relax a little bit now. At least the killing has officially stopped, and so the need to get an official end to this thing wrapped up and accomplished, signed, sealed, and delivered by all parties isn't as important as it was because people aren't dying any longer. And that, I do believe, and I suspect Trump does as well, can extend out. Instead of an end to things tomorrow, it comes a year from now. Because of that more relaxed nature of an atmosphere within a ceasefire. And, there was some talk, the leader of Germany, we need a ceasefire, but Trump is, he's holding relatively steady, and he addressed this. He did address the fact, and we'll have some of this audio, that, the thing about a ceasefire he does like is that it stops the killing, but he said, listen, the second term, I've got 6 peace deals under my belt, and none of them had a ceasefire. It isn't necessary. So we'll see. Big announcement regarding the Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, going to work at the FBI. So, of course, being our Attorney General, that's going to leave that position open. The details on that. And MSNBC, big exciting news over there. They're changing their name. And this apparently is going to fix all of their problems. It reminds me of the Democrats and this identity crisis of recognizing that they aren't connecting with people. And so they, on the surface, are trying to figure out personality-driven aspects of the party that they can sort of tinker with a little bit, hoping that that is what's going to work instead of recognizing that at their very core, they are the actual problem, not the messaging so much in and of itself. And MSNBC seems to be taking the same approach in trying to market itself. And some of the audio of the morning show over there talking about it, you could just tell that they're really, really stretching and trying to, put the best face on it possible. The Pyramid Roofing Company, text line 447-KSGF, now the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. A heat advisory remains in effect today for the entire listening area. Today we'll see a 40% chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise partly cloudy with a high near 97. Tonight a 40% chance of showers and then mostly cloudy with a low around 71. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 90. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 89.
Ozarks elder law, there's an increased number of on I know radio, I've heard it, maybe you have as well. Just go online and download a will. It's that easy. It's just fantastic. It's magical. If only that were the case. One, every state is different, particularly when it comes to, things like property and maybe putting a loved one in a nursing home, just the planning for those unexpected or sometimes expected situations that nobody likes to deal with. It's oftentimes emotionally painful. Sometimes when it comes to, who gets what when mom and dad go, it can take what otherwise is a harmonious sibling group and pit them against one another. It's just always best to have all of that planned out ahead, and just going online and taking care of it, that is not going to be your safest route. Ozarks Elder Law, Springfield, Ozark, Nixa, Branson, Lebanon, just to name a few, 10 locations, free consultation. You can get set up by finding them online, ozarkselderlaw.com, and also under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. Very good people. It poured at my house yesterday.
Did it really?
Poured. My wife prayed for rain specifically for me, because I've been driving back and forth quite frequently to Carthage, and I was like, I got to get back, and I just got to get out and water the lawn. And I don't have a real fancy sprinkling lawn system set up. It is me every 30 minutes moving the sprinkler. That's essentially what it is at this point. And so when I was driving in on 174, I could see, I was like, oh man, oh boy, that looks like that could be rain. Please be over Republic. And right as I got to about the city limits, I mean, it was a downpour, and for a decent amount of time as well. And when I walked home, and then as I'm walking in, my wife walks out and she goes, I prayed it would rain because you weren't going to be home until later to be able to water. And it worked.
There you go.
It worked.
We didn't get any rain.
Well, she just only specifically prayed for Republic, I guess.
Well, can you tell her to do my area?
I don't know how many of those you get.
I don't know.
I don't know. I guess she could try and see if it works twice. But, Yeah, so I don't know who else got it, but it was a great big raindrop. I don't know, maybe. Well, when I got home, it was maybe another 10, 15 minutes, but she said it had been raining for a while. I was very ecstatic about that. So I
I'm
just,
jealous.
yeah, well, just wanted to share. Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel bringing on Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey as an additional deputy director of the Bureau. Bailey will serve as a co-deputy director alongside Dan Bongino. Quote, I'm thrilled to welcome Andrew Bailey as co-deputy director of the FBI. Bondi told Fox News Digital he served as a distinguished state attorney general and is a decorated war veteran, bringing expertise and dedication to service. His leadership and commitment to country will be a tremendous asset as we work together to advance President Trump's mission. The FBI, as the leadership and investigative body of the federal government under the Department of Justice, will always bring the greatest talent this country has to offer in order to accomplish the goals set forth when an overwhelming majority of Americans elected President Donald Trump again. She added that Bailey will be an integral part of the important mission and said he looks forward to the continued fight to save America together. Bailey, as Attorney General, launched an anti-human trafficking task force addressing more than 1,100 reported incidents in Missouri and also cleared the backlog of sexual assault forensics evidence kits to improve prosecution of sexual assault cases. So anyway, that's what's going to be happening now. Mike Landis, at the top of the hour, said that there was going to be a press conference in which the new Attorney General would be announced. So this is something that is going to be coming up. I forget what time. Did you remember what time he said? Sometime today.
Oh, shoot. I don't know.
Sometime
I'm
today,
gonna
like
look her
10
up.
this morning or noon, or I don't remember the exact time. But that seems pretty quick. But I guess you don't want to leave a lot of time in there.
Yeah.
So, congratulations to Attorney General Andrew Bailey. He will certainly level up the energy level. He, more than probably most people I know, is just in that go, go, go mode. Like, what is in your coffee? That guy is high energy, very high energy. So that may level up the FBI just a bit. New numbers. Washington. And we're going to get to it's important stuff, and I'm going to play audio coming up of yesterday's event at the White House in which Donald Trump really did show that it's not just the United States is back, but true leadership is back on the world stage. Arguably Ronald Reagan. But I got to be honest with you, when it comes to actually getting things done, I don't know that. I mean, Donald Trump he just blows everyone away, at least in modern history. Sit there, as many of you may have, watching these world leaders that the left had been told hated Donald Trump, that the left had been told was secretly telling Biden and Kamala, you have to win. My God, if Donald Trump wins, oh my gosh, NATO's going to break up. And it's yet another lie you were told. The last 6-8 months, if you are someone who watched mainstream media, if you are a Democrat voter, you just, well, even prior to that, like the whole Russian collusion hoax, it's just one gut punch after another, I would imagine, of realizing that you've been lied to yet again. I mean, some of the things, now there are a lot of Democrats, in fact, a frighteningly high number of Democrats who still believe the Russian collusion hoax, even though everyone is really essentially admitted that, I mean, even people who are part of it, they're not out there defending it, claiming it's still true. People like Adam Schiff and these others, they just quietly let it go to the wayside. I mean, they may throw a reference to it every so often, but there's no meaningful assertion any longer that the Russian collusion hoax was anything other than a hoax. But there's still a tremendous number of Democrat voters who believe that conspiracy theory. But for those that don't, for those that really truly do seek the truth and acknowledge the truth once it is exposed, it's just, I imagine, been one gut punch after another, whether it's Rachel Maddow and the huge bombshell of Donald Trump's tax returns, which, turned out he paid a lot of taxes. That was quite diffusing for Democrats. Or Robert Mueller holding testimony in which he acknowledged, yeah, there's no evidence that there was any collusion. Or, I mean, it's just time after time after time after time. And watching all of these leaders, all these European leaders that they had been convinced hated Donald Trump, was fearful of Donald Trump, just gushing over, publicly thanking him, and being very specific in that he is the one that clearly is responsible for this after 3 years of the previous administration. More than once, a world leader referenced that, the 3 years prior to this, nothing changed until you came along. If you are someone that just has bought into everything that you've been told about Trump being horrible and awful, it's just yet another gut punch that you were lied to. You get lied to a lot. Of course, up to and including that Washington, D.C. was just the most peaceful place in the world. And Donald Trump, because he doesn't have anything else to do, decided, I'm just going to federalize law enforcement there just for funsies and because I hate black people. That's what you're supposed to believe. Well, there's already been a vast amount of improvements. More than 380 total arrests since the start of the operation. 59 firearms have been seized. Over 160 illegal aliens have been arrested, including known gang members, and those with additional charges: assault, kidnapping, burglary, larceny, commercialized sexual offensive, smuggling illegal drugs like heroin, and more. The police union, week to week, keeping stats. Most categories of crime have already been lowered, so it's not just the arrests that are occurring. And you've seen videos, or perhaps you haven't, but people who are average citizens posting videos about how nice it is to be able to walk around Washington, D.C. at night and not worry about getting raped. I've noticed something interesting, and it's somewhat anecdotal, but the videos that I have found of people complaining about Donald Trump are old white people. And the people who have been taking to social media, yesterday, for example, we played a woman who live streamed the fact that she was able to sit at an intersection with her car window down because it's safer now. She was a woman of color. You look at these protests, you look at these individuals that are protesting this takeover, and they're white liberals. What does that tell you about the fact that there are not people of color protesting this? That they are the ones that are out there saying thank you. Carjacking down by 83%. Robbery down 46%. Violent crime down 22%. Car theft, which would be separate from carjacking and that stealing a car that's not occupied, down 21%. Assault with a deadly weapon, down 6%. Property crime, down 6%. All across the board. People are safer. Now, the white rich liberals, again, they generally live in their gated community. People like Chuck Schumer, who has his own security team goes out there talking about how this was last week. And, well, I don't know what these people, Trump's making all this stuff up. I go for these morning walks all the time. It's just wonderful. It is another example of the average person specifically targeting people of color and lower income individuals being lied to by the Democrat Party and by the media, which is one and the same. And then you have the actual real results in which people are safer. It's a real result affecting real people. And I just don't think that it should go unnoticed that the people who are benefiting from this and the people who are thankful for it are people of color, and the most vocal people out there against protecting the people of color are white liberals. Hillary Clinton launched a bizarre attack over that. She's just some of these people, James Comey yesterday in the Swifty thing, Hillary Clinton made a weird post. We'll share that coming up next. Pyramid Roofing Company, text line 447KSGF. If you have the app, it's even easier. You don't even have to remember it. There's a little button that you pop, and that'll get your message right here to the studio. I'm Nick Reed. Regarding the protest against Trump making Washington, D.C. safe again, and the fact that it's virtually all old white people, lefties. A text message declaring those videos of the old white people are likely hired protesters who are supplementing Social Security. And there is a very good likelihood of that. We talked yesterday, the CEO of one of those companies where you rent protesters revealed that the number of hirings or requests for paid protesters, which is what they do, they recruit you need protesters to show up for an event that otherwise you may not have protesters or not enough protesters to look meaningful. And so, these outfits out there, you call them up and then, hey, I want to hire some protesters. And he said that since Trump got reelected, 400% increase. 400% increase for protesters. So there could be some truth to that. A traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. A heat advisory remains in effect today for the entire listening area. Today we'll see a 40% chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise partly cloudy with a high near 97. Tonight a 40% chance of showers and then mostly cloudy with a low around 71. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 90. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 89. And the Pyramid Roofing Company, as you just heard, we do have a chance for showers. And if you wake up today, today, or maybe you come home tonight and you notice yellowing on your ceiling, some leaks, some drips, I highly recommend my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the Pyramid team, they do free roof inspections. They do residential and commercial, and they work with you through that insurance process, so you don't have to stress out. They make the process as simple as possible. So if you do notice any types of leaks today, highly recommend Josh and his team. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
In response to Donald Trump's move to try and make Washington, D.C., and thus far successfully so, safer for average citizens, and tourists and lawmakers, anyone that happens to either live or visit or work in D.C., she posted the following on X. On one hand, Republican officials call themselves war fighters. On the other, they become whiny crybabies at the thought of setting foot in D.C. streets and New York City subways that literal school children navigate every day without incident. Real macho stuff. Now, of course, this is rich coming from a woman who has so much security detail. When she almost passes out trying to get into her armored vehicle, she's lifted into it like some sort of princess. I love these extremely wealthy white liberals that are surrounded everywhere they go by people with firearms, the same sort of firearms they don't want you to have to protect yourself. And then they ridicule people who don't have those same resources, who don't have the same privilege. I'd love for Hillary Clinton to walk around D.C. at night pre-Trump safety mission, all by herself. Love for that to happen. The opening line of her posting here, on one hand, Republican officials call themselves war fighters. Now, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking this a bit, but in case she hasn't noticed, the leader of the Republican Party has done more to create peace in this world than any modern human being has. Yesterday, you had European leaders, along with Zelensky, in the White House, all acknowledging that we would not, or Ukraine and Russia, would not be moving closer to peace if it weren't for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the guy that has been trying to stop. Now, there are some Republicans that are the old-fashioned, throw money at war machinery Republicans, but that's essentially what the Democrat Party has become. I mean, when it comes to fighting and war, Zelensky just whatever he wanted. I mean, it was the war drums, war drums, war drums. And so to use this old cliche of Republicans calling themselves war fighters, it seems as if she's just a little out of the loop as to how things have shifted in this country. Republicans do believe, generally, that, and Trump is definitely in this category, if you're going to fight, you fight smart. And you do it in a very powerful way. You don't tit for tat. But for a political party that's being led by a man that has wrapped up 6 peace deals between warring countries, not to mention his previous term with the Abraham Accords, and has been working at this Ukraine-Russian thing, which, of course, he didn't have to do. He could have just continued on like the previous administration and just, let NATO and just kind of continue everything as it was going. Then the latter part here, claiming that the Republicans are whiny crybabies because they don't want to walk through Washington, D.C. streets or New York subways. The vast majority of people that get murdered, carjacked, shoved in front of subways, are not Republicans. This is the whacked out thing about the Democrats' positioning of this. The people that they are really truly talking about are their voters. You could almost understand if this was, if these were deep red counties, deep red cities in which Republicans run things and 80% of the voting population vote Republicans. Washington, D.C., 93 or 94% of voters voted for Kamala Harris. And when you're talking about New York City, it's not too far off of that either. I mean, you're talking about two areas of the country in which you have the highest concentration of Democrat voters. So here, Trump, particularly with Washington, D.C., is, and Washington, D.C. does have the highest concentration of Democrat voters. And who's the one that's doing the most in order to help them? It's Trump, not even his voters. Meanwhile, the people who are supposed to be a representation by party of these individuals, Democrat elect, are the ones who are trying to prevent this safety initiative. And for Hillary Clinton to label the area of the country, the city or the district in the United States that has the highest percentage of voting Democrats, over 90%, as a bunch of Republicans that are whining, the participation of Republicans in this public discussion is participation trying to help the citizens and the visitors and the workers of Washington, D.C. You see, I consider whining when you just complain but you don't have solutions, you're not willing to do anything about it. This isn't whining, this is action. Action on behalf of people that clearly are not being given good representation by the party with which they affiliate. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. It's not been a fantastic week for statewide Democrats in a couple of different states. Body cam footage has made its way to social media. From last Thursday night, Special Assistant Attorney General Devin Hogan Flanagan, a Democrat-appointed prosecutor with the Rhode Island Attorney General's office, was arrested in Newport along with her friend because they were drunk, apparently even with their kids in tow. And they refused to leave a restaurant. And so the restaurant had to call law enforcement in order to have them removed. And in the entitled fashion that oftentimes is brought along with these sorts of people, they argue with police, they fight with the police. This is audio of some of the body cam of that Special Assistant Attorney General outside the restaurant as they continue, and this is what oftentimes occurs, they continue to be combative with law enforcement And many of these situations, though I don't know if this one would have played out that way, if they just had not been combative, they probably would have been just fine. But they just can't help themselves. And these are white liberal women, and we know that they are the absolute worst.
If I ask you to turn off the body cam, you have to turn it off. And that's your protocol. She's a lawyer, so she knows.
Well, that's bullshit lawyer stuff, so that's not true. So we gotta go.
No, it is. That's law. I'm an AG. I'm an AG.
Good for you. I don't give a shit. Let's go. We're going. Let's go.
Excuse me.
We're leaving.
Please,
We're leaving. Can you get your children out of here? Like, I don't know why.
What?
Let's go. Two full-grown women and mothers. All right. You just need the tin. You just need the tin.
What do you? What?
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with
What's the team me for?
you? You're being detained because you're not leaving.
You.
Can you relax? Sir, since you doing anything wrong.
I'm an AG.
She's the AG. You're not. She's not. Let's go.
You're arresting. You're putting me in. You're not being
Okay, do you have any weapons on you?
No.
Her badge is in the Buddy, get the hell out of here. Please, seriously.
Let's tell you something.
You want to arrest right now? No.
You're putting me in handcuffs and you're Mirandizing. You're not Mirandizing me.
Relax.
Buddy, you're gonna regret this.
Yeah.
So you got to watch the video because she can't. At the end, he puts her in the squad vehicle, and she's like, "You're gonna regret this," and she says for the 15th time, "I'm an age," and she doesn't even get the words out before he has the door closed on her. So here's part of the thing. Oh, you want to hear her friend, incidentally? So this is her friend as she was being arrested. Her friend who was playing the "she's a lawyer" card.
Overreact. You didn't have to have this happen. Get in the car.
No!
You got to do Get in. Just put her in. Get back, bro. Get in the car. Get your feet in the car.
Hey, right here.
No!
Get your feet in the car.
Can you imagine being married or on a date with this woman?
Oh my goodness.
Well, so part of what's so funny about it, when you hear it without the visuals, it is easy to think that they were just really roughing him up, but they were being as gentle as they possibly could. At one point, one of the two actually wrangled her way out of the handcuffs. And there were a lot of them that were on because they weren't throwing them to the ground or up against anything. They're dainty little gals. So the visuals of how kid glovish the police officers were with this special assistant attorney general and her friend makes the hysterical nature of which they react even funnier, because you would think that they were reliving Rodney King moments. So here's the thing that actually also stood out to me. With the special assistant attorney general, she and I don't know if it's her husband or boyfriend, kept saying, she's like, I'm an AG. And he's like, she's an AG. And you want me to go get her badge? There's two ways in which that gets used. One way, which I think people traditionally expect, and that is throwing it around like, I'm an AG. You can't do this to me. That, to me, wasn't what was behind their constant, she's an AG, I'm an AG. You could sense in their tone, they genuinely believed that meant that she should be able to get away with being drunk in public, refusing to leave a restaurant, trespassing until the owners or the managers of the restaurant have to call to have her and her friend removed. It was this, and you wonder how often they are accustomed to getting out of situations like this because they play that particular card, the don't you know who I am. But it just struck me that the tone wasn't this don't you know who I am so much as don't you know, I'm the attorney, I'm an AG, you're not supposed to do this to me. It was this real authentic belief that they are above the law, and just shocked that they were being held to the exact same standard as everyone else. Last week, video surfaced of the two-time Charleston County, South Carolina Democratic Party chairman and current gubernatorial candidate, William Mullins McLeod. And he was arrested back in the spring, but I think it was an open records request that resulted in video of him being arrested, and he apparently was walking down the street in the middle of the night, screaming and yelling in nothing but his underwear and sneakers. And so law enforcement, of course, came to arrest him, and he spent roughly an hour plus being combative with law enforcement, claiming to be everything from God to Superman, talking about physically assaulting his political rivals. And, of course, he's standing firm and, taking the once the truth comes out, then everyone will see. Now, there have been calls for him to drop out of the race. There still is a primary there for that position, but at the time of his arrest, he was the only candidate running. And as you can imagine, I'm sure Democrats are going to desperately try and find somebody to get that Democratic nomination. Although, you never know with these folks. Sometimes this behavior is a real revenue enhancer. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoors. Not just installing landscape, designing outdoor experiences, outdoor living space. Of course, I don't think a day has gone by that I haven't enjoyed ours since it got completed. A tremendous job in designing, and the water flow situation as well. We our previous patio, which was very small and very poorly, it was a DIY job prior to us buying the house, but there was guttering downspout that dumped out on top of it, and that is something that now goes underneath our patio and then pops out the other side up through the ground. And they, of course, do sod installation, garden bed construction, those drainage solutions, landscape lighting, you name it, they can do it, and they are absolute top-notch. Could not be more pleased. So whether it's just a regular patio for enjoyment for you and your family with perhaps a fire pit like we had put in, a smokeless one, be it for wood or gas line, or something larger, perhaps entertaining groups, perhaps you, just because of your work or social life, you entertain with a large number of people having come over to your home, they can do that for you as well. You can see their incredible work at hunterhardscapes.com and do a cost estimate while you're there, and see a lot of before and after stuff as well. hunterhardscapes.com and Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. Janine Pirro making an announcement yesterday about a left-wing activist and the arrest of that left-wing activist for an attempt or a plan to assassinate Donald Trump. Yes, another one.
Hi, everyone. It's Joe Janine. I just wanted to let you know here from the United States Attorney's Office in D.C. that an individual by the name of Nathalie Rose Jones is now in custody, charged with 2 federal crimes for knowingly and willfully threatening to take the life of the President of the United States. She did come from New York to Washington, D.C., and she has been threatening and calling for the removal of the president, and even worse, as she got to D.C., her threats were on Facebook and Instagram, and she continued to call the president a terrorist and was working to have him eliminated. She is now in custody. She will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Make no mistake about that.
Now, she referenced that she traveled from New York to Washington, D.C. I saw a story reference her as an Indiana woman, so I'm not sure if perhaps that's where she's from and then spent time in New York, but nonetheless, this is yet another individual that, according to the reports here, called the president a terrorist and a Nazi. Gee, I wonder where that rhetoric came from. That's just... I mean, we haven't heard anyone refer to Trump as a Nazi or Hitler or his supporters as Nazis or Hitler. All of these individuals that get caught shooting at or attempting to assassinate the President of the United States are taking their talking points directly from the media and the Democrat Party. And it's so clear they don't even deny it. They just ignore it. News in 60 seconds. Stop the killing. Trump, European leaders discuss ending Russia and Ukraine war at the White House. These really, truly are massively historic meetings that are a demonstration of the power of Trump. And as Trump has noted, ultimately, this is going to be between Zelensky and Putin. Trump has done a very good job of really defining that aspect of this, that ultimately, in the end, that those are the two that are going to have to make the decision. He acknowledged that, listen, this is some of the stuff that I like about Trump. Yesterday, he said that when it came to all of these different peace deals that he has been responsible for, he thought this was going to be a lot easier. I like that acknowledgement. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know that it really has any meaningful impact, but the fact that he's like, yeah, I thought this was going to be a lot easier. This turns out to be a lot harder than I thought. He also noted that when it comes to the meeting between Zelensky and Putin, that he's more than willing to be there if they want. He's not trying to push himself in or insert himself. He doesn't particularly, necessarily want to be. That's not a want of his, but he's willing to do it if that's what it takes. Trump was again, I believe yesterday or the day before, asked, are you on Ukraine's side? And he said, I'm just on the side of this stopping. And that, once again, is the right position to take as the individual that needs to get the credibility and trust of both sides in order to most likely have a positive outcome. This isn't Trump's first rodeo. I think we forget. Here's the thing. This is what I believe. People are people. Whether you're trying to get people together to negotiate over what color balloons to have at a birthday party or trying to stop a war, it's about reading people. It is about recognizing what their wants are, what their dislikes are, what their pressure points are, and whatever the point of negotiation, people are ultimately people, and they have motivations. They have fears. They have vulnerabilities. And Trump has been doing this for a very, very, very long time. I'm sure it's very perplexing to so many of these people on the world stage that have spent their lives in the State Department or in previous administrations, and here's this guy who comes along, and he has no world experience when it comes to dealing with countries and leaders of countries that may be in conflict with one another, but he's churning out these peace deals like they're Tic Tacs. And it must be quite confounding. How can this guy, he's not the most book-read individual out there. He's not a sophisticated individual. He's never done this before. I mean, he's new to the game of politics, sans his previous 4 years. But he's not new to the game of people. And what the elites don't understand, and maybe even some non-elites, is that Trump has been doing this sort of thing for a very, 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 very long time. Whether it's in the boardroom, negotiating real estate deals, or developing peace deals between countries, because every one of those situations is wildly different, but for one thing: people. People who have different goals, people who are in conflict. And Trump has been dealing with those situations and mastering how it is to come up with solutions in those situations for decades. And the people that are sitting there with him around the table, the leaders of NATO and Germany and Italy and France and the UK and the whole listing of these countries, they really are at a disadvantage. And that disadvantage is that they've been in government in some form or another for a very, very long time. which is a place that you don't really have to have successful results. And so they're not trained in the same way that Donald Trump has trained himself and been trained by his environment for decades, and that is where you have to have results. If you don't, then the real estate deal doesn't go through. If you don't, then you don't get that new building built. And so he has had to hone his skills in order to be successful. Well, when you're in government and that is the environment in which you were raised and that's the world you know, you're at a disadvantage because you've never been forced to win. You've never been forced to succeed. When I say win, I mean succeed in taking two conflicting sides or being one of the conflicting sides and figuring out how to make it work. It is, to me, it is almost humorous. The inability to recognize that in reality, Trump should be the one that is a master at this above all of the others because of the others being part of government elite, where Trump was part of the real world. But it's seen as the opposite, isn't it? I mean, well, Trump, he was just a TV host and, yeah, did some real estate deals. But when it comes to, being a politician, I mean, he's really, relatively speaking, hasn't been at it that long, and all these other people have, so they should be the experts. No, they shouldn't. Because if you're in a game in which your survival is not dependent on success, then you don't learn how to be successful. And the thing about the world of politics is you don't, other than winning elections, but policy, you don't have to be successful in order to continue to exist. You can fail over and over and over again, and as long as you got the money behind you, you know how to market and campaign correctly, you got the machinery that is backing you, you're going to win. Doesn't matter what your results are. He's at an extreme advantage, and it's showing. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. A heat advisory remains in effect today for the entire listening area, and today we'll see a 40% chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise partly cloudy with a high near 97. Tonight, a 40% chance of showers and then mostly cloudy with a low around 71. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 90, and taking a look at Thursday, sunny with a high near 89.
Pinnaker Honda, the 2025 model year sell down. Yes, indeed. 2025 Honda Civic Sports hatchback. As low as $377 a month. That's purchase. That's finance payments, not leases. Also finance payment, 2025 Honda HR-V LX CVT all-wheel drive as low as $332 a month with rates as low as 0.99% on select models like the new 25 Honda Ridgeline and select certified pre-owned vehicles as well. For the Honda Pilot, 25 rates as low as 3.49%. So there's just a lot going on at Pinnaker Honda. And don't forget the Pinnaker Advantage, 20% off oil changes and tire rotations when you purchase your vehicle from Pinnaker Honda. South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Donald Trump yesterday. All right, we're going to get into some of this audio. We're going to hear from Trump. We're going to hear from Zelensky. We're going to hear from a number of the world leaders. And, yesterday, though, we don't know what is still to come. Right now, it is said that, let's see, do I have this? That, well, the reports sometimes seem conflicting, but I think it's a timeline issue often. But during the meetings yesterday, things seemingly were going so well. Trump stopped the meeting to get Putin on the phone and kind of run some stuff by him to see, hey, is this going to be acceptable? Can we talk about getting a meeting set up? Because this is, again, vintage Trump. Why wait until tomorrow what you can do today? Let's get it done. And so when he feels as if things are moving along positively, let's not just at the end of the day pat ourselves on the back and be like, okay, well, next week when we, reconvene, we'll talk about this or that. He's like, no, let's get on the horn. Let's see what we can make happen. This is Trump. Now, Zelensky arrived wearing a suit, by the way, all black. The mood was clearly much different this time around than the previous time around, in which we would learn that a number of Democrats before that meeting essentially got Zelensky riled up and convinced him to challenge Trump in the Oval Office in front of the cameras, and we saw how that went. Clearly this time around, he did not have those same visits with a number of Democrats and find himself convinced to do that. Instead, it was lighthearted. They even joked about him wearing a suit. We'll play some of that audio later. After that meeting, then, the European leaders arrived where they would all take some time to speak, and this is part of what Trump said.
President of Ukraine, who is you just met a little while ago, and we're going to try and get a three-party meeting, maybe as soon as we can. And I have a feeling you and President Putin are going to work something out. Ultimately, this is a decision that can only be made by President Zelensky and by the people of Ukraine working also together in agreement with President Putin. And I just think that's very good things are going to come of it. So I hope we have a good meeting. And if we can have a good meeting, I'll set up a meeting with President Putin. And if you'd like, I'll go to that meeting. And not that I want to do that, but I will do that because we want to save a lot of people from dying. A lot of people are dying, and we got to save them. Got to save it. 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people sometimes a week. All of us would obviously prefer an immediate ceasefire while we work on a lasting peace, and maybe something like that could happen. As of this moment, it's not happening, but President Zelensky and President Putin can talk a little bit more about that. In the 6 or so wars that we stopped, we haven't had a ceasefire. And so I don't know that it's necessary. You can do it through the war, but it would be, I like the ceasefire from another standpoint. You immediately stop the killing. But I believe a peace agreement at the end of all of this is something that's very attainable, and it can be done in the near future. With all of the wars that I got involved in, we only have this one left. Of course, as I walk out the door, there'll probably be a new one starting, and I'll get that stopped too. But I thought this was going to be one of the easier ones. It's actually one of the most difficult. They're very complex. The next step would be for a trilateral meeting, and that will be worked out. And I just look forward to working and having.
All right, so that was Trump, part of his comments yesterday. And I want to, again, explain the difference between this distinction of a ceasefire versus peace deal, because easily one could see them as synonymous. Like, well, what's the difference? Why is because he's been very insistent on this for a long while that he doesn't like ceasefires, he likes peace deals. Ceasefires are what happens in order to do a peace deal. Like, all right, well, let's just agree to stop fighting, then we'll sit down and do the peace deal. And Trump sees that, I believe, as an unnecessary step. Why stop fighting so you can figure out how to stop fighting? Just stop fighting. Just do the deal that makes it permanent instead of pausing the fighting in order to come up with the deal. He noted that the thing he does like about it is that it does stop the killing, but I would argue, and I suspect that he probably sees it this way as well, is that it can actually drag things out a bit longer in terms of getting an actual solid peace deal in place. Because if you do a ceasefire, that takes some of the pressure off. If you are to somehow arrange the ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, then the sense of needing to expedite things, that sense of urgency goes away to some degree because, okay, well, we're not dealing with an increased body count every day. We can all take a breather now that the ceasefire is in place. And when you take that approach, you can put things off down the road a bit. And then most of these ceasefires end up with some situation coming about in which one side accuses the other of violating the ceasefire, so they don't really hold anything anyhow. And so I think that Trump's approach here is redundant. It can make things drag out further than they should, and they don't appear to generally be that effective anyhow. And so that's why he isn't real big on ceasefires. Now, some of these world leaders, the Chancellor of Germany, he talked about, he kind of likes the idea of a ceasefire. But Trump clearly is well defined on this. Zelensky, he spoke just a bit as well, and here's some of what he had to say after Trump.
Thank you so much. I think that we had a very good conversation with President Trump.
Very good.
And it really was the best one. Maybe the best one will be in the future. But it was really good. And we spoke about very sensitive points.
All right. Again, so the tone is clearly much different. Zelensky not being combative, but instead quite appreciative of what Trump has managed to do. We will play some of the audio from the president of Finland, France, Prime Minister of Italy, the NATO Secretary General, German Chancellor, the EU Commissioner, and they all have essentially one common theme, and that is this would not be happening if it were not for Donald Trump as President of the United States. Yesterday, part of the gathering at the White House of all these world leaders included Trump, who clearly was in command, clearly running the operation, and he, before they would begin getting into the nitty gritty of things, offered up all of them an opportunity to say some words. This is the president of Finland, Alex Stubb. Trump asking him if there's anything he'd like to say.
By the way, Alex, I'd like you to say a couple of words too. You're a young, powerful man. Before I finish up, I want you to say a couple of words. Go ahead.
I'll take the notion of youth back to my wife and try to convince her. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I think in the past 2 weeks, we've probably had more progress in ending this war than we have in the past 3.5 years. And I think the fact that we're around this table today is very much symbolic in the sense that it's Team Europe and Team United States helping Ukraine.
Now, I think some of these acknowledgments are very important because we have, as a nation and as a world, been receiving messaging regarding these world events, specifically Russia and Ukraine, that are completely inconsistent with reality. And just sort of floating out there in like no defining mission, no stated goal. It was just always more money, more money, more money, keep the fighting going, keep the fighting going. And for the president of Finland this isn't an accident. He differentiated what was occurring under the previous administration with the Trump administration. His declaration that more has been done in the past 2.5 weeks to bring this thing to an end than the previous 3.5 years. That is a very specific declaration, noting the difference in the previous administration versus this one. He also noted the strong allyship between NATO and the United States under President Donald Trump. Now, I'm sure the left will either ignore this or they'll claim, well, they're just so afraid that Trump's going to break up NATO that they have to say this stuff, which is all poppycock. And we know it is because meaningful results are coming from this. We spent 3.5 years being gaslit over this. We spent 3.5 years being told that you just have to keep your mouth shut, don't question, we're the adults in charge, no stated goal, no direction whatsoever. And a president that had to be assigned a babysitter from these other world leaders. We would learn, I think it was either the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal expose, in which they spoke to a number of world leaders, and they revealed that they would be assigned to kind of take care of him at these events. French President Macron also making a few statements.
Thank you, Mr. President, for organizing this meeting and for your commitment. And everything was said, but I just have to say here, everybody around this table is in favor of peace. And we work very hard, and we've worked very hard during the past few years to have a peace which is a robust and long-standing peace.
All right, we're going to get a traffic update, and then we will hear from a number of the other world leaders and their comments, particularly involving the United States and President Donald Trump making this potential peace possible for the first time.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. A heat advisory remains in effect today for the entire listening area. I know, it's horrible.
No good.
Nope.
No good.
No good. You done? Okay. Stop. Today we'll see a 40% chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise partly cloudy with a high near 97. Tonight a 40% chance of showers and then mostly cloudy with a low around 71. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 90. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 89.
All right, world leaders yesterday, very high praise for Donald Trump, many noting that he has managed to do more in just a couple of weeks than the previous administration did during the entire three and a half years of the war during that administration, and that it would not be possible if it were not for the leadership of the United States under President Donald Trump. One of those making remarks yesterday was the Prime Minister of Italy.
I think it's important the new phase after 3 years and a half that we didn't see any kind of sign from the Russian side that there was a willing for dialogue. So something is changing, something has changed, thanks to you. Thanks also to the stalling in the battlefield, which was achieved with the bravery of Ukrainians and with the unity that we all provided to Ukraine. And the reason why I mention it is that we also have to remind that if we want to reach peace and if we want to guarantee justice, we have to do it united. So that's why it's a very good day, the one we are in. You can obviously count on Italy as it was from the beginning. We are on the side of Ukraine, and we do absolutely support your efforts towards peace.
All right, so again, much like the president of Finland, noting the distinction between this administration and the previous, noting that something has changed, and it's Trump, and that Russia, there was no movement of Russia towards, bringing this thing to an end during the previous 3.5 years, and it wasn't until this change, that being the election of Donald Trump, this came about. I want to pause here for a moment before I play audio of these other world leaders. Something for you to think about. The Democrats, of course, the closer Trump gets to making this happen, the more they talk about how, well, the only reason that he's making this happen is because he's giving Putin everything he wants, which, of course, is absurd because Putin wants all of Ukraine. That's not on the table. There are a lot of things that Putin wants that are not going to be on the table. There will be some things. That's how you make these things happen. But if Donald Trump is some sort of stooge, if Donald Trump is some sort of puppet of Putin because of the deal, then is not the prime minister or the president of France also a puppet of Putin? Is not the prime minister of Italy then also a puppet of Putin, or the president of Finland, or the UK, or the European Union commissioner, or the chancellor of Germany? Because all of these people are on the same page as Donald Trump. And I think that's something that needs to be recognized anytime the media or the Democrats try and claim that this is some sweetheart deal for Putin. Then why is it every other one of these world leaders, which the left in any other circumstance loves these people? We were told these are anti-Trump individuals. These are the people that we should be more like, as opposed to somebody like Donald Trump. But in order to accept their premise that this is the sort of deal that is just a big wet kiss to Vladimir Putin, that means that you have to also believe that every one of these other world leaders is in Putin's pocket. This is the German chancellor, a few remarks yesterday.
President Donald, many thanks for having us today. I think this is extremely helpful that we are meeting and hearing that the two of you are having such a good meeting today here in Washington. The next steps ahead are the more complicated ones now. The path is open. You opened it last Friday. But now the way is open for complicated negotiations.
Then the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte.
I really want to thank you, President of the United States, dear Donald, for the fact that you, as I said before, broke the deadlock, basically with President Putin by starting that dialogue. And I think it was in February that you had the first phone call, and from there we are now where we are today. And that is, I think, if we play this well, we could end this.
And then finally, the European Union Commission president on working together with Donald Trump in the United States.
Fantastic NATO summit. Together, the two largest and biggest economies in the world. We had the largest trade deal ever agreed. And now we are here to work together with you on a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. Stop the killing. This is really our common interest. Stop the killing.
I know it is a common theme here that everything we're told was true isn't. But even the notation there by the head of the European Union that we've worked out this historic trade deal. Now, why did that happen? That happened because of Trump's approach when it came to tariffs. Liberation Day, April 2nd. What were we told that that was going to do? We were told that that was going to tear us apart from our allies. We were told, of course, that was going to sink us into a Great Depression. But in terms of our relationships with these other world leaders, how damaging it was going to be. We were told this is not how allies treat one another. We were told that this was going to make it difficult to work in any capacity with these other world leaders because of the just sledgehammer approach that Donald Trump was taking instead of, doing one deal at a time, using a scalpel, and he went in like Wreck-It Ralph instead, causing all this chaos, and it was going to cause a great loss of credibility in the United States. And I think that it should be noted here that you have the head of the European Union that is using the outcome of that as a demonstration of what a great relationship the European Union has with the United States now. And utilizing the biggest trade deal in the history of this planet as evidence of that positive and strong relationship. And so another instance of the outcome, the exact opposite of what we were told was going to be occurring. It is, if you're an honest person, it is just remarkable how often Trump turns out to be right. And some of it may be that there's attention drawn to it because no matter what he does, Democrats claim that it's wrong. We know this is the case. And so because they never will allow themselves to be on the same page with Trump, that means somebody's always going to be right and somebody's going to be wrong. And they have crafted this environment in which Trump has the opportunity to prove over and over and over and over again based off the results that he is correct. But I've never seen anything like this. Whether it's tariffs or peace deals or the relationship strengthening of Donald Trump, when it was a year ago, his election was going to mean the end of NATO completely. And in fact, what we hear from the very people who are the members of NATO is that it's stronger than ever because of him. It really is. It's an amazing time to be alive for a number of reasons. To see such historic, massive, history-altering things take place, but also to see a segment of our population that adheres to one political party that has crafted this reality that is anything but. People that think, and they really do have themselves convinced of this, that Trump is a dictator and that the world is going straight to hell in a handbasket and everything it is worse than they ever imagined it would be. In the meantime, you see this reality of what's going on, and that is a remarkable thing to see play out. What a sad, missed opportunity to observe. Many of us watch these historic things play out, and there's so much that can be learned. We love to tout the idea of learning from history so that we don't repeat the mistakes, yet so many people don't even learn from present. They refuse to acknowledge the present. How much we could learn about the way that these things are playing out for the better, but people refuse to because it's Donald Trump that's doing it. And I would like to think that there is some self-reflection for some people who, in their heads, they want peace. But when they see it happening and it's because of Donald Trump, they feel anger inside. And if they're forced to acknowledge they want it to fail, that is not a good place to be. If you are rooting for the failure of bringing a war to an end because you hate Donald Trump, that is not a good place to be in life. Let's do a traffic update. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 417-447-KSGF. Let's hit on some of your text messages here regarding the Ukrainian-Russian situation. Zelensky is not going to agree to anything. He's power-hungry, two-bit dictator with a Napoleonic complex. He knows that the second the war ends, he's out of a job. Or is Europe, with U.S. money, going to prop him up? The U.S. needs to stop throwing money at Zelensky and let Europe deal with it. Regarding ceasefires and the fact that Trump does not like ceasefires, he just says, no, let's just have an official end to things. Some of these planned ceasefires are also golden opportunities to throw as much ordnance downfield to kill as many people as you can before the ceasefire starts. And then someone asking, what is poppycock? Does that mean it's kind of like BS? Yes, I use the term poppycock. Yeah, kind of. It's nonsense, poppycock, silliness, nonsense, BS. I think all of those would probably qualify. There was one bit of more lighthearted audio with Zelensky, and I think that it just was a demonstration of the expectations and just the overall mood being so much different than it was last time, and arguably because Democrats were not involved this time around. Zelensky had visited with a number of Democrat senators prior to that Oval Office meeting, in which, according to reports, he was essentially encouraged to challenge Trump in front of the cameras, and that torpedoed things for a period of time, which is sad to think how many people may needlessly have died because of extending this thing further out for political reasons, all to deny Trump some sort of what they would see as a victory. But back on track here, and Zelensky with Trump answering questions, and he was wearing a suit, and one of the reporters noted his suit.
Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit. I should have seen it. I said the same thing. I remember that. Yeah, I was good to see you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky. In the same suit. I changed you.
All right, so I know it's a little noisy. It's one of those Oval Office situations, but what Trump noted, yeah, this is the reporter here who called you out in your suit, and he was really kind of mean to you last time. And Zelensky said, oh, I remember. And then when the reporter started to ask whatever question he was going to ask, Zelensky interrupted and noted, you're wearing the same suit as you wore last time. At least I changed what I was wearing, kind of poking fun at him for having one suit. So it just, it was, again, much different tone. Everyone there without outside interference, seemingly on the same page and hopeful. Though, many people do. Listen, I would like to think I'm not getting my hopes up. And it's really interesting how invested so many of us sort of are in paying attention to this, given that we aren't there fighting it, that we aren't sacrificing lives of Americans that were sent over there. I think part of the reason we find ourselves so emotionally engaged isn't even the money thing, but because we were told for 3 years, you have to support this, and if you don't, that means you support the bad guy. And the previous administration, through their divisiveness and their demands of complete compliance regarding the involvement of the United States financially and in other ways perhaps as well with this Ukrainian war, it sort of, I think it forced people to, or a lot of people, to be emotionally engaged, to have a connection to it, because they were telling us, hey, if you ask questions, you're a bad guy. You support Putin. You're a dictator. How dare you ask questions? Zelensky is the great defender of all things democratic. And it was presented as this binary choice, all or nothing. You are either the good guy or the bad guy, which increasingly is what the Democrat Party has become. Republicans are bad. Trump is bad. Putin is bad, and then by default, Zelensky is 100% good. Democrats are 100% good, and that forced people in America that otherwise might not necessarily have that much thought invested in what's been going on in Ukraine or Russia, sort of feel backed into a corner by their own country, or feeling as if they had to back Zelensky unquestionably and support giving him as many taxpayer dollars as he would want, because that is the side of the quote good. And I think that's part of the reason that, because we've been involved financially speaking and supporting other military incursions and so forth, but this one just has a much different sense to it, considering our level of involvement or lack thereof. And of course, Trump deciding this is something that he wanted to try and fix. He wanted to put an end to it. So all of that really has been engaging for people. It's just, if something meaningful does come out of this in terms of an end to it, That will be such a remarkable thing, because these wars don't generally end because you have a leader of another country that picks up the phone and is like, hey guys, let's put a stop to this. I think I can get us together and work it out. That's not how these things, they usually go on and on. And some of these peace deals that Trump has crafted with some of these other countries are going on over 30 years. 30 years. That's 10 times as long as what has been going on with Ukraine and Russia. And so the fact that we are even in a meaningful way as a world, having leaders come together and get to where it looks like there might be some sort of end to this thing, I just don't think that it can be overstated how remarkable that is. Trump's approval rating spikes amid Ukraine peacemaking efforts, according to a new poll. Survey showing that Trump's approval rating increased after that recent summit with Putin. So I can only imagine that what we've seen since then is probably going, it certainly isn't going to hurt. We should say that. Majority approval in all age demographics except people over 65. The survey conducted by Insider Advantage, August 15th through 17th, found that 54% of respondents approved of Trump, with 44 expressing disapproval. Separated by age group, 57% of respondents in the 18 to 39 and 39 to 64 demographics approved of the president, compared to 40% of respondents 65 and over. Trump's rating also up amongst blacks, up among Hispanic respondents, according to polling analyst Matt Towery. This is Insider Advantage that did this polling, and it has been ranked by Media Bias as the least biased rating system, and was rated as one of the top 10 polling services covering general elections from 2014 to 2022 by Real Clear Politics, coming ahead of several legacy media outlets in YouGov. So it certainly has demonstrated that it is one of the more accurate polls out there, and it shows, with the exception of people over 65. And I don't know what has happened to some of these people that are over the age of 65. I'm not sure, maybe if because of the throwback hippies, that for whatever reason they just have this disproportionately high, irrational hatred for Donald Trump. And then, interestingly, one of the, of course, trends that we've seen under Trump is that younger people are disproportionately higher to support Trump and Republicans, which could be for a whole number of reasons, COVID among others. But nonetheless, more positive news for President Donald Trump in terms of his popularity. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041, streaming live, KSGF.com on the YouTube. You can find us there at Springfield's Talk 1041. Thought I'd share what Kayla had to say about Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, noting that the Johnsons have provided value above and beyond their real estate agent duties for us. Whether it was buying or selling a home, they provided honest answers or feedback to my questions, suggested task priorities to better the property, as well as provided and sometimes even scheduled the vendors to help with the endeavor. The organization, knowledge, and skills provided are top-notch, not to mention they are just fun and easy to work with. Google has only 5 stars, but I would give them 10 out of 10. Margaret said, so impressed with Emily and her amazing work. She has found our family multiple homes over the years, and she is on top of things. She answers every call, every text. We will forever recommend her services, as do I, for any of your home buying and your home selling needs. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. She's awesome. I guess it was it yesterday? No, maybe it was. Maybe it was yesterday or the end of last week. Sometime talked about these 50-51 organizers in this protest, and that the Greene County Sheriff's Department had posted on social media just a heads up saying, hey, these people are going to be doing kind of against them, against law enforcement, complying with the enforcement of immigration laws. And Sheriff Arnott wanted to make sure that the public, given that these protests were taking place, to let the public know that, hey, they have a right to do this, but just so you know, we're not going to stop complying with immigration laws. We are going to do our jobs as members of law enforcement. And this apparently did not set well for a number of reasons with the people of the 50-51 movement, up to and including what they now claim was the fact that this wasn't actually an official event, but by the group, but rather came as a result of individuals gathering on their own accord, which how did that just sort of a weird thing. I thought I'd read to you the at least some of the news leader story, but there's one part in particular that I found somewhat humorous. And the group of local protesters, they did rally Friday outside the Greene County Jail to protest the actions of U.S. Immigration Custom Enforcement, prompting a response from the Greene County Sheriff's Office. Since President Donald Trump took office in January, several executive orders have contributed to the increased detention of undocumented immigrants, including hundreds of people being held in county jails. This is called enforcing the law. As a group of protesters gathered, a statement was posted on the Greene County Sheriff's Office Facebook page acknowledging the protest and civilians' right to protest, while also arguing the group's objective clashed with the values and priorities of the community. The Sheriff's Office indicated the event was organized by the local 50-51 group, a national movement. 50-51 has been behind several nationwide days of protest against the Trump administration. Post by Springfield's 50-51 organizers indicated the Friday protest was not an official event by the group, but rather came as a result of individuals gathering on their own accord, because this is what people with lives do. In a statement to the news leader, the organizers noted the central message of the event was to raise concerns about ICE detaining members of the community, particularly those who may not have a criminal record and are being denied due process. In its post, the Greene County Sheriff's Office stated, while we understand the perspective of this organization, its stated objective does not align with the values and priorities we believe best serve our community and our nation. Again, enforcing the law. According to the National 50-51 website, the organization does not take a position on specific topics, but rather has a singular goal of ending executive overreach. In the comments of the Facebook post, Greene County Sheriff's Office clarified that the statement pertained to the local chapter's goal of ending our cooperation with ICE. A local organizer of the Friday event, who wished to remain anonymous for safety reasons, indicated the post by the Sheriff's Office unnecessarily escalated tensions and allowed threats against protesters to be posted on social media until formal requests were filed. The organizer called for the post to be removed and instead for protection to be provided to protesters at future events. The statement provided to the news leader noted several protests have previously taken place in the community without this sort of response. Derek James, spokesperson for Greene County Sheriff's Office, told the news leader he reached out to the organizers after learning they planned to protest to ensure they were aware which areas on the campus would allow for safe gathering, which he noted the protesters did follow and remain non-disruptive. He said the post was made to answer people's questions. Quote, people took it a million different ways, but we're just putting out there that they can come here and peacefully assemble like they did and protest what they think is not right, but our contract with ICE is not going to change. The sheriff's policy of holding inmates for any federal agency at the Greene County Jail has not changed since Trump's executive order, nor has the office's policy of referring inmates to ICE when any Greene County deputy makes an arrest and the suspect's citizenship status is called into question during booking, according to previous news leader reporting. The sheriff's office has had a long-standing agreement to house inmates for federal agencies, receiving $100 per day per federal inmate. In October, prior to the presidential election, the agreement was modified to add ICE to the list of agencies for which the jail would hold detainees, though the cost per inmate remains the same. James verified this has not changed. As of the morning of August 18th, James said there were 256 people held for ICE at the Greene County Jail. Quote, our office will continue to work within the law to support the president's directives and the will of our citizens, which includes securing our borders and taking lawful action regarding individuals who are in the country illegally, that Greene County Sheriff Jim Arnott said in a posted statement. Now, it seems there is apparently was some confusion as to exactly who is actually responsible for getting this little protest together. But what I just found to be so perfectly hilarious for people on the left was the fact that the organizers of the protest, they're protesting the Greene County Sheriff's Department. They're against them. They're the bad guys because they are cooperating with ICE in order to enforce our immigration laws. The organizer called for the post to be removed and instead for protection to be provided to protesters at future events by, of course, Greene County Sheriff's Department. So here they are demanding protection from the people that they are there protesting against. Is that not just perfect for the left? I would recommend, as I always do, people who decide that they want to pick this one area of law that they support people violating. And instead, try to help those people become actual citizens the legal way. That is the one thing that really seems lacking from these people who portray themselves as having such amazing compassion for these individuals that are in our country illegally. There is a legal pathway to citizenship. We've been over this numerous times. We've talked about the number of times right here in Springfield that people are legally sworn in to become hundreds of thousands of people, usually every single year, become legal citizens. Why don't you people who are protesting in support of not those who came here legally, but those who cheated, and put a little effort into it and actually help those people become legal citizens? Now, I can actually tell you why. This is a rhetorical question. The reason they don't do that is because it's too much work. It's just a lot easier to post something on social media and then have people get together and socialize, standing in front of a courthouse, standing in front of a county jail, standing on the side of the road with poorly made signs while cars honk at you either in support or disgust. And you do that for a couple of hours and then pat yourself on the back, look at the people who showed up, make some posting on social media. That's a lot easier than actually doing something helpful. What do you think? those who are in this country illegally would rather have. Someone work with them and help them and assist them to become legal citizens so that they can stay here, or somebody who decides to hold up a sign about Trump being a fascist for 2 hours on the side of the road. See, these protests aren't for the people that are in this country looking for a better life. They're for the people holding the protest. It is virtue signaling done in order to make them feel as if they are somehow virtuous and better than the rest of us. Because if they really cared, they would do something meaningful, like try and help people become actual citizens in this country. And by the way, there are people who do that. There are people who do that every day in this country. Volunteer their time. See, that takes effort. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. A heat advisory remains in effect today for the entire listening area. Today we'll see a 40% chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise partly cloudy with a high near 97. Tonight, a 40% chance of showers and then mostly cloudy with a low around 71. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 90. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 89.
Got a text message. I was talking earlier about some new polling numbers that show Donald Trump is up amongst like Hispanics, up against blacks or with blacks, and his approval rating's 54% amongst everyone except people over the age of 65. A text message on the Pyramid Roofing Company text line sent from the app. Good morning. I'm an old lady, 66 tomorrow. Oh, happy birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday. 66 tomorrow, and I have no idea what's wrong with people my age. President Trump is the best president of my lifetime, but grateful to hear the younger folks are waking up. Yeah, I don't know what it is either, and I'm not saying this to be nice. I don't consider 66 to be an old lady. Have you ever seen the side-by-sides of, it'd be like Sofia, what's Vergara, is that her name?
Yeah.
And she's like 55, and then it'll be Rose from the Golden Girls, whose character was 55. Like, what has happened? Like, what has happened where just 30 or 40 years ago, if you were 50, you look like an old woman, but now you don't. I mean, some people may make life choices that do accelerate that aging process a bit, but it is an amazing thing. But yeah, 66, that's nothing. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure. People that are above 65, so I guess that would be sort of the hippie era. I'm just trying to figure out if, I mean, obviously some above 60. You almost need it broken down even more. Like, what's 65 to 70, 70 to 75, 75 to 80-year-olds? And are these the, you know, the left-wing hippies from a long time ago? I don't know. I'm not sure what it is about that segment of the population. But you look at a lot of these protests, and that's who it is. A lot of these, frankly, nut jobs that are spewing hysterical conspiracy theories, or even in D.C., one of the protests against making Washington, D.C. safer, they were mostly older white liberals that were participating. In fact, I didn't see a person of color in some of the pictures that I saw. And, you know, you get some younger people in there, but it is a significant number of people that are up there in age. And I don't know, maybe they just scare more easily. They're more susceptible to, well, maybe that's it as I talk about it out loud. They say that often people who are older are targeted for scams for a number of different reasons. And I do think some of it is because they tend to be less skeptical, maybe because of the era they grew up in. And just in this day and age, I don't know that people are as trusting. Maybe they are just more likely to believe that Trump is going to make concentration camps and, you know, execute homosexuals and all the other bizarre conspiracy theories that they come with. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss on it. I wish someone would do some in-depth research on it. But I do want to revisit a story that is, it is just so perfect for this is your problem. This is your problem, Democrat Party. Now, there's a story in The Independent that's about these female or these male Minnesota Viking cheerleaders. And there's an article about how the NFL male cheerleaders clap back. Let me read to you some of it here. A pair of men on the Minnesota Vikings cheerleading squad who have been deluged with often homophobic hate online from the right have come back with a tongue-in-cheek response to their critics. Wait, did somebody say our name? The Vikings' Blaze Sheik posted on Instagram. Yes, that is his name, Blaze Sheik. Posting on Instagram Saturday, standing with cheer teammate Louis Kahn. The pair, whose seasons with the Vikings began in April, became the object of right-wing online pile-ons last week, with conservative commentators and former athletes raging against the presence of male cheerleaders in the NFL. I've been a Vikings fan all my life, sigh, posted actor Kevin Sorbo. Jesse Kelly, commentator, writing, "Don't think for a second the enemy's defeated. We've finally begun to fight back. We're finally engaged. Smile about that, but we have much more work to do." Former NFL wide receiver Antonio Brown also joined in, using a homophobic slur on X Sunday in response to the video of Khan performing. The Vikings organization has rallied behind Sheik and Khan in the face of outrage. Quote, every member of the Minnesota Vikings cheerleaders program has an impressive dance background and went through the same rigorous audition process, the team said in a statement last week, adding, we support all our cheerleaders and are proud of the role they play as ambassadors of the organization. Sheik, for his part, has long been a fan of the Minnesota team. Quote, I went to a lot of Vikings games with my family, mainly my dad, he told NBC News. I was definitely watching the cheerleaders thinking, I wish I could do that, being the role model for other little kids who don't know that that is an option. About 1/3 of NFL clubs have male dancers on their cheer teams, a practice which began in the 2018 season with the Los Angeles Rams. In 2022, the Carolina Panthers became the first squad with an openly transgender cheerleader. Male cheerleaders have long been part of the sport at the collegiate and high school level. Former Republican presidents George W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, Dwight Eisenhower, all once cheerleaders. The fierce reaction to the Vikings team comes as conservatives push to reinforce traditional gender norms throughout professional and amateur sports. In February, the Trump administration signed an executive order aimed at forcing schools and athletic organizers to bar transgender girls and women from playing in women's sports. The NCAA and NAIA colleges athletics conferences have banned trans women from competing in women's sports. The NFL has struggled in recent years to balance calls for progressive messaging and practices with the more conservative ideals of large parts of its fan base and ownership class. Now, there are a few things about this, and we're going to take a break here. But Democrats, when you're standing around wondering why it is that you keep losing men, this, and I'm just going to broadly here explain, it isn't that they are male cheerleaders. Many of us have, whether it was the university level or high school, or you want to throw back to the days Dwight Eisenhower was a cheerleader, that's not what these two guys are doing. There is a big performative difference between what has traditionally been the role of a male on a cheerleading squad versus what it is that these two individuals are doing. And just to put it in plain language, if you didn't know anything else about the gender of male versus female cheerleaders that we have traditionally been accustomed to, you would be able to tell based off their performance whether it was a male or a female. What is occurring with these two cheerleaders, and there may be other male cheerleaders that are behaving this way as well, but these two that are posting their videos on social media for the Minnesota Vikings, they are mimicking females. They are not behaving as the traditional male cheerleader. They are acting as if they are female. Now, some people may argue what's wrong with that, and that's fine if you want to take that position. But to make it seem as if what is occurring with the Minnesota Vikings has always been occurring, even all the way back to Dwight D. Eisenhower, but all of a sudden because Trump is trying to enforce these traditional gender roles on people, now conservatives have a problem with it. That is not what is going on. Also, and this is where you're losing men, by making it sound as if this is an issue that is a conservative issue versus a leftist issue, a liberal issue, because there are a tremendous amount of guys out there that are not politically inclined one way or another, and they see this sort of thing, and it makes them uncomfortable. And by defining this as something that is a conservative value only, as opposed to covering a wide spectrum of individuals, what you're doing is telling men in particular, and frankly some women, well, you're conservative if this is something that you don't care for. So you are potentially pushing people that aren't politically aligned one way or another into the conservative camp by telling them that's what they are. Now, if the Democrats and the left feel that that is a winning way to start winning back the men that they've been hemorrhaging for the last couple of elections, I guess have at it, but you're going to be sorely disappointed. We're going to take a break. Couple of the thoughts on this coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company text lines 447 KSGF. I'm going to throw it over to traffic right now.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. A heat advisory remains in effect today for the entire listening area. Today we'll see a 40% chance of showers in the afternoon, otherwise partly cloudy with a high near 97. Tonight a 40% chance of showers and then mostly cloudy with a low around 71. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 90. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 89.
I was talking earlier about some new polling showing that Trump is up all across the board except for people 65 plus, and what is going on with these older people, and a number of you sending in some insightful texts, and I will get to those before the end of the show. But I want to just go back to this discussion about the NFL male cheerleaders clapping back, and it's the Minnesota Vikings, and they have two male cheerleaders that are not the traditional male cheerleaders, but the left is once again doing what they do in a situation like this. They alter the landscape, and when people don't respond positively, then they claim that they make it sound as if they aren't doing anything different, but all of a sudden conservatives have just up and decided they have a problem with this. And we saw this a lot when it came to the transgender thing. I recall that a popular posting from people on the left was pictures of like David Bowie and Mrs. Doubtfire and all of these guys dressed as women and being like, this has been around forever. What's the problem all of a sudden? Not realizing that they actually were making the point of people who have become quite annoyed at it being shoved down our throats all the time. And that is the fact that, listen, yeah, that's right. Drag and trans have been around for a very long time, but you all began to make us or demand that we pretend as if they're actually really women. That's the new thing. And demanding that we call them by a preferred pronoun. See, everybody was fine when it just existed, when those people just did their thing. Nobody had problems with the David Bowies of the world or the Boy Georges of the world. Nobody did. But they also didn't run around demanding that you pretend that they're actually a woman. They did not demand that they be able to take showers with women or compete against women. So whenever reasonable people go, now wait a minute here, that doesn't make much sense, the left acts as if it's just a new problem that the Republicans and conservatives decided to create. This male cheerleader thing is similar. This piece in The Independent is noting that male cheerleaders have been around forever. Dwight Eisenhower was one. Ronald Reagan was one. But that is not the sort of male cheerleader that these individuals are. Those male cheerleaders, do you know why they were cheerleaders? Do you know what their purpose was on the squad? It was to be men. Because they were stronger. And they could assist female cheerleaders in doing stunts that other female cheerleaders could not assist them in, largely because men could pick them up, toss them around, throw them in the air. And so the traditional male cheerleader's purpose was to be the traditional man. That is not what is happening with this. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't at times perform those tasks because they are physically stronger, naturally, as men than the women are, but their overall presentation is not acting as if they are men. It is acting as if they are women. And that, for a lot of people, is off-putting. It's uncomfortable to watch. And here's where the big lesson for the Democrats comes in, where you don't understand why you're losing men. It's because of this stuff. This is why. Your insistence on pretending as if the normal reaction of a male is bad and wrong. And it's homophobic, and it's this, and it's that. This is a perfect example. And I explained this before. You can't win over people that you just don't like. And the Democrat Party does not like men. They do not like what traditionally men like. They recoil against it, and you can see it in these articles and the coverage of painting anyone who doesn't click in and support men acting like women as cheerleaders, that they are right-wing, that they are extremists, that they are homophobic. Well, the vast majority of people that are men who don't enjoy watching that sort of thing are not homophobic. It's just not. This is how people are made up. We are creatures. We are biological creatures that have instinctual reactions to things. And for men, watching men mimic women in a way that is sort of sexual in nature is not appealing. You know, here's another news flash. The cheerleaders, their existence. Oh, yeah, it's supposed to get everyone, excited and riled up. Okay, yes. But do you notice there's generally a common theme traditionally? It's the pretty girls. And the reason for that, again, science, biology, guys like that. They like to look at pretty girls. This is why the pretty girls are generally the cheerleaders. Now, as I noted earlier, there has been a traditional history of male cheerleaders, but their purpose was to support the female cheerleaders in a masculine way for the stunts and everything else. And so there wasn't so guys are okay with that because it's a guy being athletic. It's a guy being a guy, picking up, tossing a pretty girl. But when you switch it around and you expect guys to pretend as if guys are actually girls in their behavior, it doesn't compute. And when you don't understand that, you need to then understand that's why you don't understand men. That's why. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. The Foreman team, they are expanding. If you are in the HVAC industry and looking for a change, Russell is hiring. He is searching for skilled service techs to join a locally owned family-run business that's just straight up awesome. If that sounds like the kind of team that you want to be a part of, reach out and apply today. And while we're talking HVAC, AC season is still going strong. If your unit is blowing warm, maybe it's running nonstop, or it's just making strange noises, Foreman Mechanical can help. They offer residential and commercial services, from quick tune-ups to service repairs to full system installs, and they even have a 24/7 emergency service line for those unexpected breakdowns. So whether you are looking for a new career or it's time for an AC repair, give Russell and the Foreman team a call. You can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
So here's another headline. Is, I guess, a good little follow-up to the previous segment regarding female cheerleaders. And just the left insist on people not being normal. And by normal, I mean the mainstream, what the average is, okay? There are a lot of people out there that have abnormal I'm trying to think of a word to use that doesn't make it sound like a perversion, because I don't mean that. The interest, that just aren't the norm. Or, some people like certain, like lacrosse. Is that a normal sport for people in the United States to participate in? No, because very few people do. It's not on the norm. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. But what happens is you get these people on the left, and they insist on coming up with sometimes the most bizarre, weird stuff. And then they wonder why it is that, quote, normal people aren't connecting with them. And so here's this headline. ABC's Good Morning America promotes sex swap Broadway play about closeted gay president Abraham Lincoln, now a trans woman.
What?
Yeah. I mean, it's as if they're like, how much weird can we pack into one performance?
That is a lot of weird.
The Broadway play Oh Mary, about Mary Todd Lincoln, the wife of President Abraham Lincoln, is reimagining Mary Todd as a raging alcoholic with cabaret dreams, and the iconic U.S. president is portrayed as an evil closeted gay man. Over the weekend, ABC's Good Morning America featured RuPaul's drag queen alum, Jinx Monsoon, who, some of the names that they call Jinx Monsoon. I don't even want to think of why, especially Monsoon. I don't want to think too hard about where that came from. Who portray Mary Todd in Oh Mary. Monsoon touted the play and the iconic president's character, saying Abraham Lincoln is now a trans woman. Lawmakers get to rewrite history. Why can't I? NPR reports, well, of course they do. Interviewer Brittany Luce sat with Oh Mary creator and star Cole Escola to explore the play, outlining a plot synopsis and revealing the complete rewriting of history. Their exchange was previewed by host Scott Detrow, who made the observation that the lead character saw Mary reimagined as a raging alcoholic with cabaret dreams, Lincoln, evil gay guy, so forth. So anyway, it goes on to explain. But part of it, what you have here is a completely deranged interpretation of Abraham Lincoln and his wife. But then you have these news outlets treating it and presenting it as if it's just perfectly normal. It's a reinterpretation. And I'm telling you, and this is where the Democrat Party just they refuse to wake up. This is how you increasingly lose normal people, particularly guys. They see you come up with this stuff, and then if they're like, well, that seems weird, you scream homophobe at them, you scream conservative right-wing nutjob at them, and you alienate them. And while some may claim, well, this isn't, specifically a Democrat thing, it's a left-wing thing. You don't find a lot of average normal people that, well, hey, honey, want to go to a show? Oh, yeah, I heard there's a new one with Abraham Lincoln playing a raging alcoholic gay transgender, and his wife is an alcoholic cabaret wannabe. Well, that sounds like that's going to be really good. Yeah, let's go see. That's not what normal people do. And the Democrats and the left increasingly, I'm trying to use language here to help maybe you understand. You like creating this circus. When you do this and you promote these things and try and pretend as if it's normal, you craft this image of a freak show of members of your political party. One of the issues is the fact that they try to normalize this stuff. Listen, the thing about way back in the day, the circus or the so-called freak show was they said, yeah, that's what we are. We know we're not normal. We know we're not for everybody. But hey, if you want to see the sorts of things you've never seen before, if you want your mind blown, we may have something for you. Today, the left, when they develop these same sort of performances that are way out of the norm, instead of acknowledging that, they act like there's something wrong with you because you don't think that it's normal. And this is the furtheration of the upside-down world that the left has created. All right, I want to get to some of your text messages coming up after, let's see, do I have, yeah. A quick break here regarding why it is that polling seems to rather consistently show Trump's where he's least popular is people over the age of 65, and why that is. A lot of people have really done the warning thing on the interest rates and what's going to happen with them. And wait, don't get that refinancing or that home loan until those interest rates come down. That could backfire on you. Lower the interest rates come down, the more people that say, oh, maybe I will buy a home now, which of course means that you got more buyers in the market, which can cause the price, supply and demand to go up. You add into that lower interest rates, the seller's like, well, they can afford to borrow more money because the interest rate's lower, so I can charge more for my home. And that could bite you in the butt. You could end up paying more with a lower interest rate than you would have with a higher interest rate if you do it today. And the upside of the interest rate situation is that you can always refinance when the prices drop, when the interest rates drop. So just point being, if you are someone who has been thinking about a new home, but you did not want to lose that awesome interest rate, I recommend reaching out to the Carrickers and their team, talk with them over the situation, and then you can make a fully formed decision. You may find out that it's the best thing for you to do now, or you may decide to wait. iwantagreathomeloan.com because you do. So there's new polling out that shows Donald Trump, 54% approval rating. He is up amongst all of the, well, he's up with Hispanics, up with blacks, he's up with people under the age of 65. But over the age of 65, he still doesn't do as well. And so I just reference the fact that, well, what is it with these people over the age of 65? I wonder what is it that causes people that age to be less supportive of Trump? Because, and I tell you why it's perplexing to me, is some of what we've just been talking about. How weird the Democrat Party has become, and a party that has been fully supportive of sex change operations for kids, and forcing girls to compete against guys, and all of this different stuff, and that just, you would think people that are older in age would be more likely to reject that sort of stuff. So it seems somewhat counterintuitive. Well, here are some of your messages coming in. I'm 77. And I'm so tired of the old people. Oh, that's Joe. Hey, Joe. I'm 71. During the 60s protest, I would say it was the Vietnam War protest. The reason, because of the unfairness of the draft. Most of the people are the older baby boomers who are reliving their youth. And I did wonder if some of it was that. It was a chance to, for me, anytime I see a reel or an opportunity to relive the 80s, That's my era of growing up, and so it resonates. And so I did wonder, is with the protest against Trump, was it tapping into some nostalgia for some of these individuals? Another saying, my dad was a staunch conservative until he retired, and then he went Democrat so he could get all the quote free stuff. Another saying regarding older folks not being fans of Trump, maybe older folks are hung up on how things are done and don't like the disruptive nature of what is happening. Maybe they want the changes rolled out more slowly. And I think that there could be something to that. Certainly Trump, in presentation, has never been the traditional, feel very presidential, and there's sort of a security blanket there. And if you grew up through, some of these different administrations, which, relatively speaking, much more buttoned down and presidential, I could see that perhaps that would be something that might be a turnoff to some. I'm a child of the generation you're wondering about with the anti-Trump derangement syndrome. I grew up spending my evenings watching NBC sitcoms most evenings. My parents reached the age of watching the news more and more, and guess what networks they watch? NBC. Fast forward, MSNBC is the current channel always on at their home. All they talk about are talking points from that network. None of their children or grandchildren watch that stuff, so they all wonder if we can get through a family gathering without Trump hate being spewed. So I think that's some pretty interesting and insightful perspectives as to why it is perhaps that those over the age of 65 don't seem to be as keen on Trump that increasingly the younger generations are, which, when you're looking at the long game, that's problematic for the Democrats, and that's a good thing for Trump and the Republicans. Any of the show you missed, Spotify, iTunes, KSGF.com as well. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.